So today we're going to be trying to breed some neon tetras. This is a fish I've bred in the past. I've never had a huge amount of success with it. I've already gone ahead and set up the tanks. We're going to be trying to breed 6 pairs today, and I think I've got the method down pat for how we're going to do this today. So I've tried a few methods off camera. I haven't really had much success, and I've come back to the method that I originally started with a few years ago, and we're going to see if it works. So these are all 5-gallon tanks I've set up. I filled them all up halfway with RO water. I've also thrown a handful of peat moss in there, and I've let that soak overnight. You can get peat moss from any hardware store. RO water is, I think, going to be essential to having success with this fish. Where these fish come from in the wild, the water that they breed in is very, very pure and fresh, and there's not really any mineral content in there. Most people's tap water has quite a lot of mineral in it, and when I test my tap water, it has a TDS of about 170 to 250 parts per million. The RO filter that I have here at the shop takes everything out of it and leaves us with pure water. So nothing in it. That's what I've gone ahead and added to these tanks. If you don't have an RO filter, which I'm guessing you don't, you can always go ahead and buy distilled water. It's, a couple of bucks for a gallon of it, and you really don't need a lot to spawn this fish. So that's what I'd maybe recommend. The other option is rainwater, but you can have some issues with the pH with rainwater, so I kind of just would tend to go for probably that distilled water. But we filled them all up with RO water, and I've let that peat moss have a couple of days to soak, and you can see it's formed like a nice layer along the bottom, and there's still some that hasn't fully sunk down, but that's not going to bother our fish at all. The reason I've added the peat moss is it adds a little bit of tannin to the water, which emulates their natural environment, but it's also given us a little bit of like a substrate. So when these fish breed in the morning, hopefully their eggs are going to fall into this like dirt layer and be protected from being predated on. I've got a colony of neon tetras in my back breeding room that I've been conditioning for the last 2 weeks. They're in the tap water, so they're not going to be spawning, and I've been feeding them lots of bug buffet and a ton of baby brine shrimp. These are both high protein foods and got the females really plumped up. Now what I've gone ahead and done is separated the males and females into 2 containers. The way you sex neon tetras is males have a straight neon line and females have like a slight bend in theirs. The other thing too is you judge by size. So females are always going to be plump, and if they're going to be spawning there, you're going to be able to tell that they have eggs inside of them. It's something you just got to kind of look at and get familiar with. They're a little bit tricky to sex, but once you've done it a few times, you definitely get the hang of it. Now the way they breed is neon tetras are egg scatterers. They're non-parental. Males they breed in the morning, first light. Males will go over some moss or some material and try and attract a female to go with him. They'll spawn, scatter the eggs everywhere, all over that moss. The eggs will fall down and they hatch within 24 hours, but the fish just disappear and don't take care of them. So one of the common issues is spawn robbing with neon tetras, and that's the issue I had with my last method. I got a spawn, but most of the eggs were eaten by the parents and it didn't work. So hopefully this peat moss kind of helps us a little bit. It's currently lunchtime, so we're going to set these fish up at lunchtime today. They should spawn tomorrow morning. If I don't think they've spawned tomorrow morning, I might leave them for an additional day, and then I'm going to pull them out and see if we start getting some fry. Basically, the setup is a little tank, shallow, but they don't need a lot of space. I've got a sponge filter in each of these tanks just to keep some aeration in them. I don't think you'd even need this. They're just in there because I'm going to raise the fry up with them. The next thing we're going to add is some moss for them to spawn in. So I'll put you down, Sam. I've got some just normal moss here. This is like Java moss, I think. And we're just going to add a little ball of it in each one of these tanks. I might just add it in the corner here so that they can come up in the corner and spawn. But this is going to entice the males and females to breed. So let's drop that moss in there. Now we're dirtying up the tanks, but they'll settle down pretty soon. So I'll just set these 3 tanks up, but I've got an additional 3 that I'm using as well for this experiment. The other thing that's good about the moss is it's going to have little infusorias on it that are going to start to culture in this tank. And hopefully they'll be the first food for the fry if we do get some babies out of this method. So now the next step for us is going to be adding some fish. Today, I'm going to be trying to breed them in pairs. And the reason for this is because of setting up 6 pairs, there's a good chance 1 or 2 of them probably will spawn. If I set up 1 pair, I might not get so lucky and I'd have to do the method a few times. But because I've got 6 pairs, we should have a good chance at least getting 1 spawn. The good thing about having pairs is the fish, if they're going to breed in a pair anyways. What's happened sometimes is if I have a group of fish, 1 pair will be spawning, but the other 3 that are in the group are just sitting down the bottom underneath the moss eating all the eggs. So I find that breeding these fish in pairs works the best. So what we're going to do is add a male to each one of these tanks. And we'll go ahead and add a female as well. Perfect. Now, Another thing to note before I leave you guys is right now, I think the temperature in the room is about 20 to 21 degrees Celsius, so quite cool. These fish like cool, dark water. I've tried to breed these at higher temperatures and it never seems to work. I found that 20 to 22 degrees Celsius is definitely the best temperature for them. So what I'm going to do now is turn the light off. It might seem really dark, but this is what they're going to need to spawn. So there's a little bit of ambient light that comes into this room. What I'm going to do is leave the lights off on the system until we get fry, because the other thing that's interesting about neon tetras is their eggs are photosensitive. So if they do spawn, if there's lights, the lights will kill the eggs. So having them dark in this nice ambient lighting will hopefully help them to breed properly. I'm going to set up the other pairs and we'll see if they start spawning tomorrow morning. Okay, so it's a couple days later now. We're back here with the neons and I've got really good news. So definitely a few of these fish have spawned, and the reason I know that is because there's a ton of infertile eggs. When your fish spawn, it doesn't mean that they're going to be fertile. Like sometimes something goes wrong, the eggs don't become fertilized for a few reasons. Either the male doesn't fertilize them, or sometimes I've noticed with tetras, the eggs can sit inside of the female for so long that by the time they come out, they're already cactus and not good. So I think that might have happened here in a few tanks. Just because we got infertile eggs doesn't mean a few of them didn't get fertilized. Like I said, this isn't the next morning, it's the morning after. So I let them kind of settle in for the first afternoon. Then I gave them the first morning to spawn and another morning, and now it's about 10 a.m. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and take every single one of these pairs out. Then I'm going to turn the lights off and we're going to just continually check these containers and see if we start getting some fry. We're not going to do anything else. We're just going to take the parents out and see if we start getting hatching. But it's good to know that this method works to get the spawns, because even if we don't get any fertilized fry out of any of these 6 spawns, what we can do is just run the experiment again and hopefully we get more fry. Yeah. Good news. Okay, so it's a couple days later now, and I've been looking in these tanks for any signs of breeding success, and in 2 of the tanks I found some wrigglers. So I really wish I could film these for you guys. It's kind of almost impossible. They're so tiny and they are literally just like a little ball with a tail. I've taken one out in a container to try and film. Again, that was like almost impossible. I was just flashing my light in these tanks and they kind of just react to the light and start shooting around everywhere. There's only fry in 2 of the tanks, so if there's not any fry in the other ones, I'm going to rerun the experiment and try and get some more babies out of there. If there's not any babies showing up in the other tanks, I'm going to try and rerun the experiment on those and try and get some babies in there. But at the moment, we're just going to let these fry develop, and when they start free swimming, that's when we're going to start feeding them. So they're not free swimming yet, they're still developing. I'd call them like larvae at this stage, and pretty soon they're going to be developed and free swimming, and that's when we're going to start giving them some bug buffet and trying our best. So I've got no clue how many we've made, but at least we got wrigglers. That's, you know, a really good sign. So it means the method does work. We just got to get it down pat. So I'll see you guys in a few days when they develop and we can start feeding them. Okay, so I don't know how many days later this is. I think it might be 3 days since I updated you on our little fry. Today, we're going to give them their first feed. Now, I came in yesterday and I saw the fry had kind of developed a lot more. Weirdly, they don't do a lot of swimming. They kind of just sit around and look like little tiny eyelashes in the water. They don't swim around or hunt food down or anything like that. And they're quite immobile for the first week of their life after hatching. It's weird because they hatch quick, but then they don't do anything. So it's kind of a bit strange. Today, I'm going to start giving them some food. And what I'm going to be feeding them is some bug buffet. So I'm going to crush this up into like a really fine dust with my fingers and just mix it up like a milk in the water here. Now I'm going to do this as many times a day as possible. And I'm just going to feed like a really little amount. I like to feed a little bit often versus feeding a lot, like a couple times a day. I want to just drip feed food in there and keep them fed. A lot of people will feed Infusoria, but I want to see if I can just do it on the bug buffet, because that means it's easier for you guys. You don't have to do your own cultures or anything like that. You just buy the product and use it in the tank. So the way I'm going to do it is literally just take like a tiny pellet of this stuff and mix it up in my fingers into like this milky dust. hopefully that stays suspended in the water column long enough for these babies to have a feed when they decide to. But anything that's not eaten, I'm going to add a mystery snail in here. He's going to go around and clean that all up for me. And it's also going to feed the Ichthyosaurus that are naturally in here and just kind of get the whole ecosystem buzzing with microfauna for these little fish to eat. So in the meantime, I've only got 2 tanks here with fry, and I'm going to keep rearing those up and see how many are in them. But the tanks where I didn't get fry, I just put the pairs back in and spawn them again. I'm just going to keep doing that until all of the tanks have fry, and we're going to see how many we can make in the next couple of weeks. Very exciting. But yeah, I'll keep you updated with how these fry go and how I raise them up. And yeah, okay, so I think it's been about a week since I updated you on how our fry are going and how the experiment's going. So the second round attempt didn't work. I got eggs out of most of the pairs, but none of them seemed to hatch. So I don't know what that was all about, whether there's like an issue with, I've had this happen before where the females are so plump and full of eggs for too long and they don't let go of them because they're in the tap water. So what happens is those eggs become infertile in their stomach and they might spawn and it might be a successful spawn. And then it just turns out that the eggs weren't already viable. So I think that's probably what's happened here. And I also think there was quite a lot of spawn robbing going on. So the fish were just spawning, but then the eggs were getting eaten because they just sit on top of that peat and it doesn't fully cover them up. So what I've gone ahead and done is for all the tanks where we're still trying to get spawns, I've reset them up with pairs today and I gave them another week to just be conditioned, and the females are super plump. I've added a ton of spawning mops, and these just provide a ton of space for those eggs to fall into. And I'm hoping that it also gives them a bit more darkness. And I'm just thinking this might improve our chances a little bit. I'm finding this fish really, really tricky to breed and quite frustrating, to be honest. I've spotted like 1 or 2 fry in this tank here. It's kind of not done that great. But in this tank, I've spotted at least 10 at one time. So there's probably more than that in here. And these fry are still tiny, tiny. I can see 3 right here. They don't look like neons at all. They're tiny. But they're at least eating baby brine shrimp now. I've started to feed them a tiny bit of baby brine shrimp as well as the bug buffet. Yeah, they're all doing good. So it does show that the bug buffet does work for this because that's all I fed them. I put some snails in here to help clean up, and they've started to grow as well, and they're doing a great job keeping this little container clean. We do have success. I just want like hundreds of these fish. So what we're going to do is continue to raise these up, and we're going to see whether this second method works a bit better with these disgusting spawning mops in here. I'll just keep you guys updated. Yeah, it's cool to see the babies. Like, I mean, they're tiny, tiny. Like, I forgot how fun it is to breed this fish. So yeah, I'll see you guys soon. I don't know how long it's been. We're back here with our neon tetra experiment. Today, I'm going to give you guys some updates on what I've been working on with this. We've had quite a bit more success since the last time I've seen you. The original batch of babies are growing like crazy. They're actually doing really well. They're starting to get to about nearly 1 centimeter in size. They're all eating baby brine shrimp, and we're definitely past that like critical stage of like, oh shit, are these going to survive? They're definitely going to survive now. I've counted definitely more than 10. I know for like a $2 fish, it's kind of pointless, but I am in love with these. I want them for my new room. I'm going to set up an Amazon tank for them, and they've got me like super inspired. The amount of love I have for these little baby fish is like more than you could ever put money. Like, I would have to charge $20 for each of these neon tetras to ever even separate me from them because I'm in love with them. While I've been doing this, I've been trying to figure out a better way to breed them. I had a little bit of a think, and I thought maybe what was going wrong with the other spawns was, firstly, these are all imported fish, so they're just going to be like shit from the get-go, basically. They're just not good quality, and they could have been hormone treated at some point, so they might not even be viable. So that's the first thing. So I think if I can grow these babies out and have my own like homebred neons, these should breed like crazy. And I'm definitely going to grow these out and use them in a future video and try and like make 1,000 neons, because wouldn't that be just so awesome? The other thing I was thinking was, I think I'm definitely on the money here with the water parameters. I think the peat makes a huge difference, and the temperature, and definitely the water volume too. I think what I'm struggling with, I think I'm getting a lot of spawn robbing. I think what's happening is those parents are going straight down after they lay the eggs and eating them off the surface of that peat. What might have happened in this case with the first batch that we got was like, the parents went over it, spawned tons of babies, and then the ones that were like stuck in the moss or hidden well were the ones that hatched out and survived, which would make sense because we probably had like 50 eggs laid at least in there, and we got like 10 fry from what I've seen. So what I did was I decided that's not going to happen anymore. And I put a ton of spawning mops along the bottom of the breeding containers. So basically I wanted the whole floor of the breeding container to be covered in moss, and I don't have enough moss here at the room, so I just use the spawning mops, which is just like acrylic yarn. I set the pairs back up. I set up 1, 2, 3, 4. I set up 4 pairs, And in 3 of the containers, I've seen fry. I let them hatch out. They all spawned, I think, except for maybe one of them, which is what happens. But in this one, I've seen like 3 fry sitting on the sides. This one I've seen a couple, and that one I've seen a couple. So we're gonna see how many come out of that. This just quickly shows instantly like much better results, because we set up a ton of pairs at the start and we only got like 1 successful kind of batch. But now we're getting like 75% successful. We'll see how many babies come out of these. I might even try and set up maybe 1 or 2 more tanks and just see if I can't crack another good hatch rate. But at the moment, what I might do is see how many babies we get, compare the results of these 2 little methods, and then probably wrap the video up there. So I'll see you guys in a couple of days and show you how many babies there are. Okay, so I don't know how long it's been since we last looked at this experiment, but we're gonna finish up today on this video. The new method that I tried worked a whole lot better than the previous methods we did at the start of the videos. The extra mops has created a ton more babies and allowed more babies to survive. So obviously this is because the mops are covering up a lot more space and allowing the eggs to fall through and the parents not to eat them, and then thus we're getting more fry. There's a few other things that I'm going to try and do to tweak this method and make it a little bit more productive. The original babies we've got have already started to get their neon lines and they've grown beautifully. So you can see exactly what a baby neon looks like. Some of the other things I've been working on is feeding green water. I really want to try and do this with maybe some gravel down the bottom, because the gravel will also allow some of the eggs to fall through as well. So we're going to finish up today. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. I really appreciate it. I think you've seen my hair go through a few evolutions in this video, so it's kind of cool, but I'll definitely make another video on how to breed these guys again. And I really want to nail down a couple of methods because they're just such an interesting little fish to me. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.